If you know that it's gonna take 9 no's to get to 1 yes, at that 1 yes, you're gonna make $100,000, then you know every single handshake is $10,000, regardless of what they say.
Hannah Hammond is a strategic powerhouse who disrupted the real estate industry, transforming a $20,000 investment into multi-million-dollar ventures by age 25. Founder of Cashit Lending and HB Capital, Hannah is trusted nationwide for her innovative thinking and remarkable impact.
I held an open house. One person showed up to the open house. 3 hours into it, that was a guy that ended up listing a $1.1 million commercial property with me. And I sold it for $1.1 million. And you can't hate yourself into change. You can't guilt yourself into loving yourself. You can't shame your way into transformation. It has to come from love. And until you love yourself, you'll never be able to be happy. Like, love is the root of everything in life.
So let's say the woman listening to this, they're a big dreamer, they're a hustler, they're ambitious, but for whatever reason, they're either at a standstill and they want to replicate your success. Where do they start?
I'll tell you right now. I've been working on this a lot, and that's been the biggest part of my transformation is you can't.
You know what I found very, very interesting? That 97.8% of you that listen and view this podcast haven't yet subscribed. Now, if you're looking for the one way that you can actually help us build this show into something that's going to be absolutely incredible and life-changing for you, the one thing you can do is to hit that subscribe button, because it takes a lot of time, effort, and money that we put into this podcast to make it what it is. And we've made it very clear that we never want to run ads or sponsors or anything like that on this show. So the only way that we can actually grow this channel is by subscribers. And I promise to you that if you hit that subscribe button and you help this show grow, then I'm going to continually keep bringing more, bigger, and better guests to teach you the skill set and the mindset that you wish you learned earlier in life. So please, it'll mean the world to me if you hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and do that right now. Now let's get into this episode. Hannah, so awesome to have you here. When I was putting together all of the research for this show, I was getting more and more excited and learning all about you. And I found out that you were a millionaire by 25, multi-millionaire at 27. You're 28 now, you're crushing it. You've done heaps of big deals, multiple companies. For anyone who's not familiar with you yet, give us a bit of a quick rundown. Give us the context of your life. How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and coming all the way from Australia. It's so nice to finally meet you in person. And, it was just a journey of transformation and a relentless drive. And there were so many times throughout my life where I just wanted to give up and didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. But I just kept going, and I just kept learning and growing and using resources like books and YouTube University and all these different technological things that we have, the information's at our fingertips to just keep inspiring me to push on. So, I think, coming from a family that wasn't entrepreneurial, didn't have a lot of money, and had a very scarcity mindset and was very much driven from fear, I had it programmed into me that I wanted more, but also, I was afraid for a long time. And so I just continue to push myself to have the courage to take action, even though I was terrified of taking that action. And, eventually you just learn from your mistakes. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I've lost a lot of money, and I've lost relationships and partnerships and lots of tears. But here we are today, and I've been slowly but surely transitioning and creating a life that I'm like super, super excited to wake up to every single day.
I love that. The loss of relationships, the loss of, the money, things like this, was this a choice by you, or is this the sacrifice that had to be made, or like, what was the backstory in there?
It usually ended up being a choice.
Yeah.
I think I wanted success so bad, and I was so afraid of not having money to take care of myself. And I knew that, Prince Charming wasn't coming to save me. Like I didn't have a father figure really in my life. So I knew I had to support myself and take care of myself. But one thing that a mentor told me, when he's an energetic intelligence coach, which people think that's silly, but I think it's one of the most important things in the world. He told me, just strive for 90% of your life to feel good, because 10% is going to suck. You're going to be miserable, sad. There's going to be loss. There's going to be money loss, family loss, death loss, relationship loss, all these things, health issues. But if you can get a 90% in any class, that's an A. And if you know that you lived your life where 90% of your days were happy and you felt good, then you know you lived your best life. And so when I heard that, it was such a simple thing, but it really transitioned the way I looked at everything. And I started to do, he calls them energy audits, on everything that I was doing and the people that I was around and the work that I was involved in. And I started to really pause and be like, am I in flow with this person? Like, do I feel creative and do I feel energized and joyful and I'm in my zone, or with what I'm doing in my work, or with my health and what I, when I look in the mirror and all these types of things? Or am I in like the red or the yellow zone, which is where most people live, where it's a state of stress or anxiety or anger or fear. And I started to realize at that time in my life, and that was the transformational moment for me. I was 25, I believe I was, when I had that coach. So it's been a few years. And I realized I wasn't in a good relationship. Every time I was with the person or around the person that I was engaged to, I did not feel good. And I had to leave that relationship and make that hard decision. I was building businesses and doing work because I was just chasing the money. I was just like, well, so-and-so's doing good here, or I think I should do this over here. And I wasn't following the intuition inside of me of what actually is my unique gift, what actually brings me joy and makes me feel energized, and what is something that I can do from a place of love and creation instead of a place of fear and scarcity.
So if somebody wants to do this energy audit, I like this because I think this is probably something I would do just unconsciously, like just sort of quickly. Like if I'm in environments where I'm like, you can feel it internally. And I was actually having a conversation yesterday with Andy. Andy. I can't forget the last name. I have a big conversation about this, and we're like, like in this space, especially when people are wanting to rise and create their own sort of personal brands, there's two types of people. There's the people who are like doing it for the wrong reasons, and the people who are doing it for just being authentic and genuine to serve and make an impact. And when you're around people that are got bad intentions, you can feel it internally. You can just be like, there's something up. And one of my mentors, he tells me, he's like, it doesn't matter about the skills you can learn. He's like, if you're trying to become the best salesperson, he's like, you need to do 90% of your training needs to be not on the skills. It needs to actually be on embodying like self-confidence, because self-confidence will ripple into another person. Like who you are on the inside will show up vibrationally, And so how do we do like, say, this energy audit? I really like this. So like, is there a framework? Is there something to this where someone listening to this go, this is great, I got to energy audit my life? How do we do this?
So when I was first building the habit, I set alarms on my phone every hour, and it just said, how do I feel? And it would just go off because, we go a million miles an hour throughout our day. Like I have an eating coach because I struggle with binge eating and all that stuff. But anyway, she tells me like, you got to slow down the train. We're on a train going 100 miles an hour, and you got to slow down the train in order for you to have any sort of real conscious control over your actions. And so that energy audit framework of setting the alarm every hour, and then you just start to think about it. I started to set the alarms more, not so often as I started to do it, but when you set the alarm every hour, you pause, you take 1 minute and you think, what am I doing right now? How do I feel on a scale of 1 to 10? How do I feel? And then you get to start to track.
So 10 would be just like love, peace, gratitude, clear, I'm assuming.
And flow.
Okay. Yep. And 1 would be angry, stress, sad, any negative emotion.
Yeah. So it's green zone.
Okay.
10 is green zone.
Yep.
You're Michael Jordan hitting every basket you're throwing, and it looks easy as heck.
Yeah.
And time is flying. Time is passing quickly. You feel good. You feel energized. You feel alive. You feel like you're in your zone. And yellow would be that middle ground. Like you're kind of maybe bored. You're kind of a little stressed out. You're a little maybe frustrated, impatient, things like that. And then red would be like, I'm depressed, I'm miserable, I'm having an anxiety attack, I'm extremely angry, I'm completely lost. And so you just kind of start to gauge where you're at, what are you doing?
What activity creates that feeling? Is that what you're sort of looking at? Like syncing, like what's creating this and how can I eliminate that?
Yep. And you can do that with work too. And Dan Martell teaches the time audit, where in his book, Buy Back Your Time, this is a little bit different than energy, but you can break it into, what do I love and what am I great at? What do I love and I'm not great at? What am I great at but I don't love? And what am I not great at and I don't love? And then that's how you start to delegate your tasks throughout your day from a entrepreneurial perspective, a little bit more tactical. But the energy audit is really just overall in your life. What are you doing and who are you doing it with that makes you feel good or bad?
So I heard in your story as well that, so growing up, your family, they grew up, it sounds like your mom and dad did the best they could with everything they had. Dad worked in the pawn shop, mom was working in a store, couldn't afford air conditioning, so you were growing up in like super hot houses. And then 25, you're a millionaire. Like, I've worked with a lot of people, and the gap from having to, I forget who I was telling the other day, they're like, you've learned a lot of things, like what do you think it is? I'm like, to be honest, for so long in my life, I feel like I was in reverse, and I had to just put the car in neutral first before I went forward. And I think a lot of people out there are trying to learn the next thing, that's because they feel stuck, or they're like, well, because of my life, I'm like this, I haven't learned what I need to learn yet. But quite often it's about unlearning who we've actually been and getting these weeds out. So I know if you grew up in that kind of household, you said before, like, more scarcity, living out of fear. But then if someone was to look at you, be like, but how did you go from that to just, millionaire at 25, freaking crushing it? Someone would look at you and think that you've grown up in wealth. So how does somebody go from this mindset of, I don't want to say broken, but you said you were struggling at 21. Like, how does somebody go from that, like, emotionally sort of like suffering sometimes, to crushing it, right? 25. Like, what is this gap? What is this? How do we emotionally sort of move through that? I'm keen to know that.
I think it's just being relentless in the pursuit of your dreams. And I know that's cheesy, but it's real. And I had this almost delusional belief in myself, like Adam Sandler says, a delusional belief in myself that I had the potential to create whatever life I wanted to create.
You've always had that?
Mm-hmm. I was afraid. I always had doubt and fear. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm for sure gonna, do this and do that. I was always afraid, and I came from a place of fear. But the fear and the pain served as a gift for me for so many years. And I believe that people always try to run from their pain, but I think that we should really pay attention to the pain and really accept it and analyze it, because in your pain lies a gift. And like, your pain is always trying to tell you a message. And I'm really grateful for everything that happened in my life. And I don't like, trauma comparison, because there's a million people that have it way, way worse than I could have ever had it. And I didn't have, I had a pretty normal life. We had lower income, and it wasn't, a super healthy marriage and relationship and stuff like that. But it wasn't like I was without food and water and, how a lot of people have it in the world. But I just never gave up, and I knew that there was no other option but to just keep going and to figure it out. And so I just kept going and tried to figure it out, because I didn't have a plan B. And I was very, very, I think I had a chip on my shoulder. I definitely had a chip on my shoulder.
Most successful people do.
Yeah.
I remember I used to do Muay Thai fighting, so I kind of grew up in a boxing gym. And I remember one of my, I kind of call him my mentor, even though he told me all the wrong things. But he said to me one time, he's like, Morgan, some of the most successful people on the planet and some of the most successful fighters actually have a chip on their shoulder. So he's like, if you're pissed off at someone or something, he's like, use it. Like, bring it into the ring.
Yep.
And I think my early years was definitely sort of prove something, for sure.
Yeah, same. I felt so worthless and so unworthy and so unlovable and such a burden for so long that I had to prove to myself that I wasn't. And because I felt so worthless, I created the strategy of overachievement and success to try to make myself feel worthy of life or love.
Were you doing it for yourself or someone else?
I was doing it for myself because I wanted to take care of myself. I wanted to have a life that I actually was excited to wake up to. And fortunately in high school, I had a couple very wealthy friends, and I got to see the other side. I got to see healthy marriage. I got to see yachts and boats and money, and like there's no scarcity mindset about money. And I got to see beautiful family environments and healthy people and beautiful physically healthy people and immense wealth. And so I was so inspired by that I just was like, I can do that. I can do this, and I got to go get that. And researching, that's kind of how I got into real estate, is I would research how to build wealth. And it was like 90% of the world's millionaires get there through real estate and entrepreneurship. So I'm like, all right, I'm getting my real estate license on my 18th birthday, and I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And, I went into corporate America for a little bit because that fear was still there. And that's what everyone else was telling you to do, is go get a degree, get a job, save your money. And as Robert Kiyosaki says, that's just not the formula for success. That's the formula for slavery. And freedom was all I ever wanted.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say the woman listening to this or watching this, who is inspired by your story and wants to replicate something like yours. They're a big dreamer, they're a hustler, they're ambitious, but for whatever reason, they're either at a standstill, they can't see the next 100 feet in front of them, and they want to replicate your success. Where do they start?
I mean, I always say that if you're at a job, then start a side hustle. If you already have a job and you have some sort of payroll or, salary or W-2, whatever, start a side hustle and start to learn sales and learn communication and learn public speaking. I think those are sales is the number one trait that anybody could possibly learn, because then you will always be able to make money for yourself, because there's always products to be sold. And especially in a world of technology where even engineering and, information is cheap now, where it used to be valuable. Now, communication, sales, and those soft skills, emotional intelligence, and those types of things are the most important. So educate yourself, read books, get your emotional intelligence in check, make sure you heal like the trauma that's within us, and really understand you are not your thoughts and you are not your feelings, and these things kind of run through you, but you aren't them, and don't let those control you, because those are just bricks on your head that are holding you down, and it's really hard to get anywhere if you have all those limiting beliefs. And I think, everything is up here in our mind.
Yeah.
And if you can master the mind and you can master your emotions and your thoughts, not controlling them, but master how to live with them inside of you and not be them, then everything will open up to you and your potential will be unlimited, because the resources are out there and the knowledge is out there. So I think it really just comes down to the internal roadblocks that we have.
What usually happens, I see people, we don't live in a world of lack of information at the moment. Like there's every man and his dog has a podcast. There's podcasts everywhere. There's books everywhere. YouTube, university, you called it. Like there's so much information out there that we've got access to in the last decade. And I think it's only getting more and more. But what I see, there's a lack of implementation. Like people can know it all and they can know the information, but they don't do it. And I think the main reason is fears. Obviously, there's, 6 major actually rooted fears that we all try to avoid. And we all have at least one of them. And I want to sort of try to understand how you develop the strategy to push through that, because I knew there would definitely be something that was either frightening you to some degree to get out there in the bad world and speak to people, especially get into real estate. One of the most kind of cutthroat industries. Like I know in Australia, it's got a pretty bad rap. I think like if people in real estate, I don't know what it's like out here, but if you're a real estate agent in Australia, most people don't like them. It's very like, we don't like agents. I personally, I don't care, but people who have had to deal with them, it's like they've got that rap. And it's probably like, I'm just making this number up, but I would say probably at least about a 90% dominated industry by men as well. So it sounds like you picked something that was probably on paper, probably one of the tougher industries for you to get into. Here you are, a young woman getting into it, ambitious, surrounded by, is it mostly men out here as well?
Yeah,
Selling?
well, and I'm in commercial real estate mostly.
So is it even?
It's all, mostly all men.
All men.
Yeah.
So how did you, I want to understand this. So how did you what were the biggest challenges you went through once you started in your career, going out there when most people are meant to be, they're expecting a man to come and sell to them, and then now here you are. I'm imagining, did you face kickback, rejection? Did you have to try to prove yourself more, or was it easier? And how did you sort of move through that and handle the thoughts in your head that might have been creeping and saying like, well, who are you to do this? Or
Yeah. I think all of our greatest strengths are also our greatest weaknesses. And it can be, you can use your weakness as your strength. And so that's what I did when I went into it. I was in engineering school, all men. I went into commercial real estate, all men. And not only all men, all older men, like over 50, who have been in the game for decades. And, but I knew that like I'm not a man and I'm also not old. So I'm just going to be who I am, and I'm going to be authentic and true to myself. And I'm going to work harder and better and with more integrity and service and communication than anybody else. And I did that. And so at 18 years old, I got my license. I held an open house that an old man broker had. He had the listing, and I asked if I could do an open house at the listing. And one person showed up to the open house 3 hours into it. And I was sitting there in the middle of summer in Arizona and 120 degrees outside. So nobody was out looking for houses. Yeah. And that was a guy that ended up listing a $1.1 million commercial property with me the first week I had my license.
That was your first win.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, and of course, and the rejection and the pushback was, my broker said I didn't know what I was doing. I was a brand new licensee. I couldn't do commercial real estate.
They're telling you this before you had the win or after?
No, I told him, I was like, hey, I met somebody that has a commercial listing and I want to see if I can help him sell it. And they were like, no. And I was me. And I was like, okay, how about yes? And how about I list it anyway? And how about you can go kick rocks, basically? And so, I did it in a nice way, but ultimately I got the listing, and they said it wasn't worth a penny over $400,000. And I was like, I know I'm not going to go tell this client that I'm not listing it for more than $400,000, and he wants 1.1 million. So I told him I'm going to list it for 1.1 million, and I sold it for 1.1 million, and I had it under contract in 2 weeks. And so just pushing back, like be relentless and go after what you really want, and don't just be a pushover, and don't take rejection or don't take a no and just be like, oh, okay. Like life is always going to push against you. It's the law of physics. Any action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you want to go for something, you're going to get an equal amount of pushback for as hard as you're going after it. And you're just not going to get very far if you honestly, the more pushback I get and the more people tell me I can't and the more rejection I have, the more it just makes me want to do it.
This is really fascinating. I've never thought about it like that in the laws of, physics. So, okay, so if I understand that correctly, so what you're saying is, let's say Sally, who's watching this, and she's like, okay, Hannah, I get it. I need to get out there, get into sales, get into communication. Maybe I could start in real estate, because I would also agree. If I was to start again and I had to work, I would do real estate, because it's hustle. It's the closest thing to your own business. You build it like your own business, right? It's like you need to market yourself, sell, communicate. So you're saying, so once we go out there and we're pursuing something hard, we're going to be met with the equal level of desire we're giving it in kickback. So in other words, your desire when you're going out there, this is why the people are saying to you, you can't do this. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is so fascinating, because most people see that and then they go, oh, well, shit, maybe they're right.
Yeah. If you just know that the resistance is part of the equation of success, then it doesn't become so stressful and it doesn't become so annoying, because it's just, if I push this microphone, it's going to push me back. I know that when I push it. And so if I go, the bigger my dreams are and the bigger I want to build and the more I want to create, the more resistance I'm going to have. That's just part of the process. That's just physics. I push the table, the table pushes me.
Yeah.
And so when I sold timeshare in Hawaii when I had a midlife crisis at 21 and sold everything and moved to Hawaii. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, and that was the only sales training I've ever had in my life. It was like
it's quite cutthroat, isn't it? Is it kind of like lock the doors?
Oh,
you ain't leaving. Isn't it pretty wild?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the sales training was a few weeks of actual like sales training. I was just kind of I'm just a natural salesperson, I guess, just because I I don't know, I'm energetic and I like people and I'm honest and I do what I say I'm going to do. And, I don't think sales is that hard, but they said that the hardest thing in timeshare is that even if you're a top producer, it's like a 90% rejection rate, even at the top producers,
Wow, okay.
right? So you're dealing with rejection for your job. It's no, 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 no. And you're putting all your time and energy knowing that 9 out of 10, and that statistic isn't accurate, but a high percentage, let's just say 9 out of 10, is gonna be that person is gonna tell you no. But you still have to show up your best, and you still have to put on, whatever your best show and your best shot, and spend 90 minutes with these people, even though you know the odds are that they're gonna say no.
So where does the confidence come from? Because I really want the person because I remember when I first got into sales, and you get your first few no's, and it's like the best time to make another sale is right after you just close somebody, because you've got that recency bias of like confidence, excited, but it can also play against you. If you just had a no, 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 no all day, but you've got to like shake it up because this next one could be a yes, but you're feeling so defeated. How can we like confidently actually like hack our mind, and like how do you get into that zone and not let your past failures actually control how you're feeling in the current state?
I'll tell you right now. And this is what they shared. So if you know that, let's say if you know that it's going to take 9 no's to get to 1 yes, then at that 1 yes, you're going to make $100,000. Then every single handshake is $10,000.
Yeah.
Regardless of what they say. So if you just know that resistance is part of the equation, and that every handshake is $10,000, whether they say yes or no, then you can show up without being afraid of the rejection, because the rejection is just a statistic to get to the yes. And so that's how I showed up every day. And then I didn't care if they said no, because I just knew I was one closer to the yes. And then I could look at my stats and like, okay, well now every 10 people I tour, 2 say yes. So now every handshake is worth a little bit more. And then you just start to get a little bit better. But even if you're the best and you still get all these no's and you're doing well and that's part of the process, then you don't take it personally. It doesn't affect your energy.
It's so funny because that's exactly what I did. I started in network marketing, which is a similar horrible industry to start in.
Yeah. Those are who are frowned upon here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it was similar. It was like 9 out of 10. And in the beginning, it was so hard. I think in my first year, I enrolled maybe like 8 people, and one of them was my girlfriend at the time.
Wow.
So I had like 7 people.
Your mom and your girlfriend. Yeah.
Oh no, it took me 3 years to enroll my mom.
Oh God.
And I had to pay half of her back, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how bad I was at this. I couldn't even convince my family. But I remember when I started to play the game on it, and I worked out, I forget the exact number now, but I worked out as, okay, if one person's worth X amount of dollars, and I worked out that every no was like, say, $50. Mm-hmm. And I literally started to play a game with it. And I would focus on, instead of the outcome, because sometimes we can't actually control the outcome, but we can always control our output. Mm-hmm. And I knew that every single day, I might not get a yes today, but I can control how many people I talk to today. And just by law of numbers, it's going to figure itself out. And so what I started to do was this. If someone's like, no, I'm not into it, I'd say, hey, thanks anyway. I just made $50. And sometimes it's like ghosted after that. But I turned a few people around from that, because they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I get paid $50 every time actually someone says no. And I was able to turn people around into it. They go, whoa, so tell me more. So you'll get paid when someone says no? Yeah, essentially. And I would be able to turn people in and reframe, because a lot of people didn't get into it because they were like, well, I don't want to get rejected. Mm-hmm. And that's what I found, that people were saying no as a fear-based rejection because they were afraid. And I'm like, no. And I helped them reframe it immediately and enrolled them into the business. So that was my little hack.
Love it.
But I want to touch on this resistance thing more, because this is so good. Because I was going to ask you, like, where's the confidence like really come from? But I think sort of understanding just the nature of the game would create confidence, because confidence usually comes from lack of knowing.
Yeah. Well, and also I think a big thing with confidence is we don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. And so if you are trained and you're prepared and you are, like if you are ready to play the game, then you're going to be confident because you know what you're talking about and you know how to play and you know how to show up. Like back to Michael Jordan. he was confident because he knew how to play the game. He was trained, he was prepared, he out-trained everybody else in the world. And so I think that's a big piece of it as well. And then also the mental piece of rejection or embarrassment. And I think there's a statistic that shows, not a statistic, somebody shared that they say that the fear of failure is everybody's greatest fear. He challenged that to say, it's not actually the fear of failure. It's the fear of, because it's not the fear of failure, because if you go try to get something that you already don't have, it's not changing your life because you already don't have it. You know, like if you go to a bar and you're with all your guy friends and one of the guys is like, oh, I like that girl's hot over there. And you're like, oh, go, ask her out. Well, if he was afraid of failure, it wouldn't matter because he's already doing great at not having her, right? Yeah. It's the fear of embarrassment. That is people's greatest fear. Yeah. And so that's what holds people back, because they don't want to be embarrassed in front of the public or their parents or their family or their friends or their spouse. They don't want to be embarrassed. It's not that they're afraid to fail. And so when you can let go of that, like, fear of embarrassment and work on that, that's when you can really start to break through, because who cares? Okay, if you mess up. Okay, if someone thinks you're stupid or someone talks bad about you or someone thinks who cares? Like, focus on your life and what you want and what makes you feel good. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to fail. I've lost millions of dollars on stupid mistakes, but that's wisdom that you never lose. And if you are authentic about it and you're open about it, then it loses its power, because it's only becomes shameful when you believe you are bad or you are dumb or you are incapable. And usually you feel that way because you're pretending to be something else to other people. Yeah.
So you sort of just have like a neutral approach to going out there, going like, well, I've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. And even if I got embarrassed myself, then I don't care, because at least I'm trying.
Yeah, and I just say I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, that was stupid. I feel really embarrassed. Like, I feel like an idiot. And when I got a nose job when I was 18 years old. I was so insecure. My whole childhood, I was so insecure. My brother would throw me to the ground saying, tip a cow. He would grab my fat and leave bruises on my body. I would get drowned in the pool. Like, all I wouldn't say this is all the big brother stuff, but I got all that big brother stuff.
I have a younger sister.
Yeah. And, for me, they were 6 and 8 years older than me. And so I was like thinking I was going to die every day. I was terrified for my life, and they were laughing their asses off. And I was so insecure. So I thought from a child, I was a fat cow and I was not wanted and I was unworthy and I was ugly as shit and I was stupid and I was not going to be, my brother told me I would never amount to anything. And, I remember screaming at him, I'm going to be a millionaire. I'll show you. And he was like, you're never going to be anything. And, anyway, so I remember all these memories, but those all drove me to do something great and not rely on other people to make that greatness happen. But I was so insecure. And so as soon as I turned 18, I had saved up some money and I went and got a nose job, like, as soon as I graduated high school. And I was so insecure. I was so embarrassed or like ashamed that I did that. But I was more ashamed before because I wouldn't be on photos and I felt like I was so ugly and I didn't want to socialize and all these things. But it held so much power over me because I wasn't open about the fact that I got a nose job. If I met anybody new, I would never tell them, like, I would never think I would have been on a podcast and be like, oh yeah, I got a nose job when I was 18. But it held so much power over me because I was ashamed of it. I was embarrassed by it. And I felt like deep down, I was still an ugly person that wasn't a beautiful person that was worthy or whatnot. But as soon as I let go of that, and as soon as I openly said, yeah, I got a nose job when I was 18, all of a sudden, like, all the pressure and all the shame and all the embarrassment and all the guilt and all these feelings that I was feeling just went away because it didn't have power over me anymore.
You're like not afraid of someone finding out something you're keeping secret.
Yeah.
I think the most freeing way to live life is having no secrets. Because I kind of took this from, if you've ever seen 8 Mile, the last rap scene where he comes out and he has to go first and he's like, I am a bum. I am white. I do live in a trailer with my mom. I do have this. All these shit things about me. He's like, cool. Now go and tell them something they don't know about me. And he's like, fuck. That was it. And he won it, right? And I was like, I love that so much, that scene, because it's literally facing off with any of your crap.
Yeah.
And actually accepting that, because it's what I've found is it doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter what other people think of us. It matters what we think other people think of us. And that's a complete controlled internal perception of ourselves, our own self-esteem. That book, Psycho-Cybernetics, if you've ever read that. So he was a plastic surgeon in LA, and he would have all these people come to him and want plastic surgery done. And they would do things like teeny incremental changes, 1 to 2 millimeter changes. And then later go out and become successful. And he's like, well, like, we barely did anything to you. How does that create your, success in the world? So he wrote this whole, sort of book based off because it changes how we view ourselves. And then how we view ourselves is how we're going to show up in the world. But one of the things that sort of, I guess, helped me put to bed the naysays and all this, I'd always just ask myself if they're playing the game or not. Because if you're on the game of life, like if you watch any Super Bowls this weekend, there's going to be people on the sidelines yelling, saying, you should have done this. You should have done that. Oh, I would do this. I would. And they tell all their friends. Meanwhile, they're sitting in the seats observing the game. But there's the players actually on the field doing it all. And they're the ones that people are talking about. And if people at the absolute top and the pinnacle can still go out there and have people who never actually made it tell them how they should live their life, like if they're getting it, then you're going to expect it as well. So I would always just sort of ask myself that question. It's like, whose advice am I actually listening to? Because that's usually the ones that were like, we need to be careful. Like if I had a mentor say to me, Morgan, this, I'm going to listen. But also I've even got to the point now where I have my own self-internal check to be like, well, if someone says something about me, I can check in enough myself to be like, is that actually real, or is that their own projection limiting me?
Yep, that's so true. And I always say, never take advice from someone you wouldn't trade places with.
Yeah, broken, unhappy people.
Yep. Yeah,
take
exactly.
advice from broken, unhappy people.
Yeah. So it's true. And it's so true, because I know, I could have never gotten to where I am today and could never get to where I'm going if I didn't do the things that made me feel more confident about myself. And so people are like, I'm not hiding any of this. I wasn't born like this. I'm a natural brunette. I got my nose done. I have my teeth done. Like I wear fake eyelashes. Like I do all the things, not to try to be something that I'm not, but because it makes me feel safer to show up my best. And it has nothing to do with like other people can judge me for it or not for it or whatever, because everybody's different. Everybody's going to judge you either way. They're either going to say you're a fake bitch or you're ugly bitch, like whatever, it's like, who cares? But it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
And it allows me to have a podcast and to go on stage and to do these other things. And it's not to encourage it or say it's right or wrong or to say that this is one standard. It's just what makes me feel better about myself and my own skin. And if you don't feel good about yourself and you don't respect yourself and you don't look up to yourself and you don't love yourself, you're never going to achieve anything in your life. That's great. Like you're not going to live up to your highest potential.
How can someone start to love themselves more? Like, because I think women are very hard on themselves. Men are not so much. Well, it's different what I've seen, actually. Women are quite hard on themselves, but they're more open about it. Men are also very hard on themselves, but it's so suppressed where they think they're not hard on themselves. But if I work with a guy for a while and we unpack the onion layer, the shit comes out where it's like, oh, actually, yeah, I feel like I'm worthless, I'm not good, I'm this, I'm embarrassed. But it's so suppressed by the male ego or the work ethic or whatever, and they sort of push it down more. So I would say they're both sort of somewhat struggle, but it seems like more women are harder on themselves because I think they talk about it more. So how can someone start to improve their own self-esteem or their self-love and as they're going through this journey? Oh
my gosh, you have 10 years to go down this rabbit hole. I've been working on this a lot, and that's been the biggest part of my transformation is you can't hate yourself into change. You can't guilt yourself into loving yourself. You can't shame your way into transformation. It has to come from love. And until you love yourself, you will never be able to be happy and fulfilled and have a life of connection and love and have healthy relationships and have immense wealth and freedom and all these things, because it all is love. Like, love is the root of everything in life. And for me, a lot of the practice started with, I am not my thoughts and I am not my feelings. So I had all these programmed thoughts in my head that I've been hearing and thinking and telling myself for as long as I can remember. You're ugly. You're fat. You're stupid. You're worthless. You're not capable. You can't do it. Nobody cares about you. All these things, right? And so I believed, like, my nervous system believed all of those things were to be true because these thoughts were coming through my brain. When I was able to start shifting that and starting to come from a place of compassion was when I learned I am not my thoughts. It's not I think, therefore I am. It's I am, therefore I think. And you can't be something that you can observe. And so when I started the meditation practice, I realized that I could observe my thoughts. I could watch these thoughts kind of flutter through my brain. And so I am is the observer. Like, that's your soul.
Yeah, okay.
Right? The lizard brain, which is a survival brain that's been wired and programmed to survive for millions of years, is the thoughts. That's not you. That's just your fight or flight survival brain. And it's been programmed from generations and generations and generations to put thoughts in your head to survive. And your body has been programmed to put feelings in your gut, because your gut's a second brain, to survive. Like, I'm hungry, or I'm horny, or I'm tired, or all these things. Your brain and your gut and your body work together to survive. It doesn't think about love or compassion or growth or living to your highest potential. That's you as the I am. And so when I started to realize, like, okay, I've hated myself my whole life, and I'm realizing I'm not able to hate my way into the person that I want to be. So I have to flip the script. I have to learn how to love myself. And so that was the first part, is really understanding I am not these thoughts. I can observe the thoughts, but I don't need to let them turn into an emotion and then let that emotion turn into an action. Because if you can stop it at the thought, then you don't let it doesn't become you. It doesn't turn into the emotion, and then the emotion doesn't turn into an action. And so I started to wake up in the morning, and when I would look in the mirror, I'd be like, you're ugly. I would hear that thought. I would recognize the thought, like, oh, I just had that thought. And then I would say, I'm so sorry. I love you. Thank you. Please forgive me. Thank you for getting me here to where I am today. And I'm so grateful for you. And I love you so much. And so the nice thing with the body, with the brain, is it'll always go down these rabbit holes of thinking. But as soon as you observe it, you can redirect it instantly. Think of an elephant to what you want it to think about. And so then it just becomes a practice of, how often are you able to observe the thought and not become the thought, right? Because if you're just, your brain's thinking and you're just in your, daydreaming in this school of thought, then those turn into emotions and those start to manifest into your nervous system. But if you can immediately be like, oh, I just thought this thing, I'm redirecting it to a thought that's in alignment and in integrity with what I want, then you can redirect your brain more often. And you're not judging the thoughts, and you're not trying to force them to stop, because they'll never stop, but you're recognizing them and you're redirecting more often into the direction of where you want to go.
I love this. So this is why I teach everything I teach, because even some of my most highest level clients that we work with that make millions of dollars, we still work on mindset and psychology, because it's, every new level is a new devil. Every new version of us can require every new level we haven't got to yet is going to require a whole other version of us that we haven't faced off yet. So we're going to find new challenges, so it's super important. And we also can't just sit and meditate and think happy thoughts all day, contrary to what a lot of people think out there. I watched The Secret one time. I can manifest, and now I'm a millionaire, right? It doesn't happen. So you got to marry that up with insane work ethic like you have. So what's your sort of strategy or philosophy or the angle you took to really stand out? Like when you really got started, you've become like, you're doing a lot. Like I actually can't even remember all the businesses you have. We were talking about before you started, like you're in so many things now and you're really taking over. Like what's your sort of strategy to really making sure that you get people's attention and you're really standing out in, say, a crowded marketplace? Because I know people are already thinking that, okay, but that's all good, but coaching's saturated, but real estate's saturated, but this industry's, and they just create another excuse, right? So how can we get started into this industry or any industry and make sure that people know us and we're standing out?
Yeah. The first thing is just outwork other people. Do what you say you're going to do. Answer your phone. Respond to your messages.
So
follow up.
Do the basics.
You do the basic shit. It's really not that. So many people, they don't respond. They don't email back. They don't follow up. They don't be a good person and be honest and be authentic. That always served me well, as I never had commission breath. Because I was so insecure, I was such a people pleaser. I sought all my validation from pleasing other people that I was just like, I was there to serve. I wasn't trying to get shit from my clients. I was just there to make my people happy. And then the money came into my bank account. But I didn't look at a client like, oh, how much can I make out of you? Or how do I get this commission check right away? It was, how can I solve your problem? And if you can solve problems that lots of people have, or solve a problem that lots of people have, then the money is infinite. It's always going to be there if the problems are there. And so solution-based selling has always kind of been my thing. And then the next thing is, what is your edge in a marketplace? So
your unique talking point.
Yeah.
The difference.
Yeah. And so that was the thing, is like, what makes me different than my competition?
What made you different?
Well, it depends on which business it is. And
okay,
so
let's say in the beginning, when you were crushing it in the early days, selling real estate, making a name for yourself.
Yeah.
What was your difference?
So the difference when I first started in commercial real estate, when all my competition was, 60-year-old males, was that I was hungry, I was energetic, I was excited, I was positive tone of voice, I was immensely accurate and fast on my follow-up and my follow-through. I was outworking everybody. Everybody was lazy and tired and old and had all their, things. So they got complacent, and I was the opposite of that. And so sure, yeah, some clients I would lose because they thought I didn't know what I was doing, or I was too young to know how to manage money or real estate, or I didn't have enough experience or whatever. Some people were like, oh my gosh, I actually get to work with a pretty young, energized, hungry, motivated person who's like dedicated to solving my problems. That's a win for me. I'm excited about this. And so I leaned in to that, and that was my edge. And again, greatest strength is your greatest weakness, but most people want you to do a good job and have good follow-up. And that was enough to be able to set me apart.
You know what's funny? So it's funny that you say that, because I often joke with people that I always use this example. So when we run events, obviously we know the show up rate average percentages based off if it's a free event or if it's a paid event, how much they had to pay to get in there, all these things. I have it down to a science, and I'm usually accurate between 1% to 2%. Wow. It's crazy of show up, to the point where I can go interstate, run an event. So we literally did it in Sydney early this year. I said, I'm like, okay, I want to put 100 people in the room. So get a room to fit 100 people. I said, great, because that's the goal I want. Now I go, okay, to get 100 people, I know that only about 25% of people, this is crazy, 1 in 4 actually do the thing they said they're gonna do. So we actually registered over 400 people. Mm-hmm. Now that's psychotic, because like, what if all 400 people? I'm like, I've been doing this long enough. I know that people actually, the average person sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. This is what you're up against. You want to be successful? Just show up. And it's like how I start nearly every event. I'm like, you guys are incredible, because you're part of about the 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 who actually do the thing that you said you were going to do. When you had a great idea, said, hey, I'm going to go to that event, and you registered. And then the second idea has to come where you go, okay, I'm going to follow through on my original commitment. Most people don't. And it's like, if you want to be successful in this world, really all you need to do is be a little bit better than shit. And you've got a really good fighting chance already.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, follow up,
Yeah.
make calls. Like, isn't that what you do? Yeah, but most people just don't do it.
Right.
And it's just mental. Like, you can really just get ahead by just doing a little bit better than what the average person does, because the average person is actually doing fuck all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like here, 80,000 people have their real estate license or some crazy number like that. But, 10% sell any real estate, 10% of that, if that. And I don't know the statistics, but it's high. A lot of people have the real estate license. And so people are like, oh, it's oversaturated. Or same thing. I have a lending company and I have a real estate brokerage and I sell real estate and I invest in real estate, all of which are highly saturated markets. But that doesn't scare me because I know I'm really good at what I do.
There's always room for the best.
Yeah. And then you come in like, okay, I actually just had this conversation. One of my mentors, he's a cente millionaire, almost billionaire. And we were having this conversation because I'm, just launching my debt fund right now. And I want to scale my lending company nationally, but I also have my brokerage and I also have my podcast and I also have my own real estate business and I also have my portfolio. So focus is my struggle, right?
Okay.
Like, what do I put my energy in? And do I let go of this? Do I split my energy? Who should I hire first? What should my model be? Like, these are the things that keep me up at night. And it's all super exciting to me, but I'm a textbook visionary. And when it comes down to operations and like really putting the strategy in place, I'm like, boring. Next idea,
You're the ideas person.
Yeah. And so, but then we were talking about that. What's your edge? And one of the ideas, which this was just an idea that came up yesterday, but just an example of an edge is, there's people out there that wholesale real estate. They help find the deal, right? And then you pay them a fee for finding the deal. Then there's people out there that do the rehab, the construction company. You have to hire them and get with them and find a good crew and all that stuff. Then there's a brokerage that will sell the deal on the retail market on the back end. That's a whole separate company. Then there's the lending to finance the deal. That's a whole separate company. So there's 4 different companies that is required to buy an asset, renovate the asset, sell the asset. So what if you are the one company?
So you're doing all of them.
That does it all.
Yeah.
And you're the one-stop shop and you serve real estate investing on a silver platter and you make it something so complicated and so scary and so difficult easy for people because nobody does that. And so that's an idea of an edge. It's not revolutionizing any sort of industry or coming up with a new thing.
Solving a problem.
It's solving a problem.
Yeah. So that's actually one thing I did want to ask you. So you've got all these companies and now you got the podcast as well, which I know this is a business. Like, creating a successful podcast is like a fucking business. Like we literally have more of my staff I employ work in the podcast and media only. But this doesn't bring us in money. Like we don't run sponsors. We've been hit up. I just don't do it. I just want to give straight fire value to create the show that I wish I had when I was in school. And so we literally, I take money out of profits, invest into this to make it happen. Yeah. So I know it's another business in itself. So you've got so much on your plate. How do you manage your time? Like, what is your productivity secret? Like, how do you manage your life, your time to make sure that you're focusing on the real needle movers?
Who, not how.
Okay.
Another Dan Martell book.
Dan Sullivan.
Is that Dan Sullivan?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, Dan Sullivan.
Yeah.
Who, not how. Is Buy Back Your Time Dan Sullivan too? I think
No,
I said.
that's Dan Martell.
Okay.
Two Dans.
I get them mixed up.
Two great Dans. Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I'm joining Dan Sullivan's strategic coach and I'm so
awesome.
excited. But again, find more time.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're just scrappy and you're trying to build and you're a founder and you're trying to build with very little resources from the ground up, it can be difficult to obviously buy back your time and things like that because when you're getting started, all you have is time and not money. And so you work, you trade your time for money, you make some money, and then that's when you do the audit of your time energy audit. And then you hire the first person that you can to take the things that you don't love and aren't good at off your plate. And so it buys back your time to then go do the things that are your unique gift and abilities. And so I just continue to do that and level up. And, as I grow and scale and my calendar is completely filled, then I'm like, okay, let me do another audit. Who do I need to hire now to buy back my time? Because I know when I buy back my time and I focus on my unique gift, more money will come in. But I'm going to hit a plateau if I don't hire that person and I just keep doing, this calendar that I have built. And so you just keep moving up the levels of the game, and you keep hiring the right team members to be able to buy back time for you so you can do what you do best.
Yeah.
And that very successful mentor of mine that I was talking about yesterday, we talked, and he said, what part of the arrow kills the animal?
The end.
Yeah, the spear, the point, the very point. So he goes, as an entrepreneur, you have this whole arrow. And when you first start, you're the whole arrow. But over time, you want to move closer and closer and closer and closer until you're only doing activities that are the very, 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 very tip of the spear.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. Okay. And I'm assuming you don't really take me for someone who has like all this free time. Like you take me for something that when you do have white space on your calendar, you fill it with something. Is there, because we were talking last night with friends about this actually, because they were like, we've just been working so hard, and on Sundays we just like to veg out and watch movies. And I said, I get that. I went through a period of 7 years where I didn't have a day off. Even on my travel days and days I was playing, I'd still do some work. I'd do at least 2 hours, and then I realized that I hit a plateau, wasn't getting anywhere. And a mentor said to me, he's like, well, why don't you try to take 2 days off a week? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Bro, I said, I need an 8th day in my week. You don't hear me. He's like, yeah, but you're not getting an 8th day, right? So get that out. You've been doing 7 days for 7 years. So that ain't working. So why don't we do the exact opposite? And I started taking 2 days off a week, guilt-free, and my income started growing. Mm-hmm. And so I started to create a better relationship now with, so my lifestyle is so I was saying to Dean Graziosi this morning, we're having a meeting, right? And he was saying that he's like, if it's not a 10 in my life, so he goes, my family, my business, business, I think that's the main things. He's like, he goes, they're my 10s. He's like, our businesses is a 10. Family time is a 10. Yeah, my wife, my kids is a 10. Anything else, I don't say no. I don't say yes. I don't play he's like, I don't play fucking golf. I don't go to parties. I don't go to the dinner to meet that next fucking person. He's like, none of that shit. None of that matters. I focus on my 10s. And I'm like, that's funny. I'm like, because I play a lot still. I'm like, well, obviously you're 40 years ahead of the game than me. Oh, sorry, not that long. 25 years so ahead of the game than me. I'm like, there's different values. So I will, even when I'm over here traveling, I've still got play involved, and I'm going, so I make sure that I'm enjoying my day. So I want to understand, like, what are your days kind of like? Are you like back to back where you're like trying to, when you wake up, go to sleep, trying to get as much done as possible? Or have you found some sort of other secret to like flow and tapping into your inner genius? Or
Yeah. For many, many, many years, most of my life, it was no days off, no rest for the weary. Yeah, working as many hours as I possibly can to function every single day, and sacrificing all the social life, all the friends, all the relationships, everything like that, which is one of my biggest regrets, is not building relationships and having fun and things like that. But I don't really regret anything because it led me here today. Moving forward, that's not sustainable for life, nor is that a life that anybody would want to live. And there is a sacrifice when you are just getting started out that you got to do, because you don't have money to help with that, and you gotta grind. But once you're able to start buying back your time, you can start really constructing a life that is one that you want to live. And so I just thought, for me, it's family, health, and wealth, relationships, health, and wealth. And so I started prioritizing my health, because I realized me being a workaholic and being fat and sick and tired is not conducive to the life I want to live. And so I started prioritizing. I exercise every single day, no matter what. I do one rest day where I don't do anything except walk outside and stuff like that. But 6 days a week, I exercise, and that's in my calendar. So my schedule now, 6 to 10 a.m. is me time.
I'm the exact same.
Is it?
Nothing's in my diary before 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's me time. I'm slow in the morning. I like to just chill, relax, do my stuff. And then, but I can go to like 1 a.m. if I want.
Yeah.
I like nights.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't do 5
nice.
hours of sleep. No. Yeah. I like 6 to 10. I wake up usually 6. I do my little morning thing, journal, meditate, get ready, wake up to make my drink with my lemon water and take my vitamins. And then I go to the gym, come home, I get ready, listen to my audiobook, because, it takes me an hour to get ready. And then first meeting starts at 10 at earliest. But yeah, and then I do my day, and then usually I have like a happy hour, because relationships is what I love. That's my play. I love dinners and happy hours, and they're all usually business related, like people coming on the show or people I'm doing deals with or whatever, just because those are who my friends are. But I usually do that a lot, probably a little too much, probably why I'm a little not so lean these days. But I do that, and then usually I come back home and I work a little bit more. So, and it ebbs and flows. Like, as you know, when I make that next key hire and get them trained and onboarded, usually it'll bring a little bit more free time on my plate, but then it starts to build up again, and you got to move closer down that spear, and then you got to make another hire. So there's these times where I'm like a little bit overworked and a little bit of adrenal burnout, but Sundays are my day.
Yeah.
Every Sunday, unless I'm traveling and doing something weird, like for a podcast or whatever, or on vacation, which I don't really do vacations that don't involve work. But yeah, Sunday's my day where I don't like to see anybody. I don't like to talk to anybody. I do get caught
recharge
up.
Day.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same thing, my growth started going way higher when I started prioritizing those 4 hours in the morning for me and for health. And then Sundays are really for me.
Yeah.
And then, evenings are really like my relationship time. And so I just time block for my 10s in my life.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So to kind of bring this home, let's say to the ladies watching this, and any ambitious men as well, we won't leave them out. But specifically to the women, like, a reason why I was really excited to bring you on is because, like I was saying to you before we started, I've found it harder to find really awesome women crushing it. Just because in this space there's so much more men. I'm like, I want to really bring more women because there's so many women. Just like, I think our generation, we're definitely in the rise of female entrepreneurs, which is just so badass. So for the ambitious woman who's watching this or listening to this, that is still on the fence and maybe doubts herself or doesn't know her full potential just yet, what's your message to her?
Just get started and take action. And I think begin with the end in mind, create the vision of the life you want to live, and then slowly put the pieces in place that are going to lead you in that direction of that life, and just take action.
I love it. Hannah, where can everybody find you, hang out with you, check out your podcast? Where are you?
Yeah, so my show is the Hannah Hammond Show. It's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and then my Instagram is at Hannah B. Hammond, and pretty much all my channels are that same handle.
Amazing. All right, so to wrap this up, I got a final question I ask everybody. So if you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give her 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
I asked that question too.
Do you?
It's a good one. It's the best. It's all going to be okay. And no matter how dark things seem, and no matter how lost you feel or how impossible it all seems, it's all going to be okay. And we're floating on a space rock in the middle of expanding nothingness. And if you just zoom out a little bit, like, it's going to work out. And so just be relentless in the pursuit of your dreams and never give up.